What's up, everybody? Welcome on in to another episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by our friends at Whelen Engineering. On the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, and trusted to perform. Once again, from MRN HQ here in Concord, North Carolina, I'm MRN pit reporter Chris Wilner, MRN announcer Kyle Rickey out in Connecticut. K-Rick, man, probably one of the busiest guys right now. You've got a little extra on your work plate up there at Stafford. How's it been going? How's your week?
Yeah, it's been busy. Unfortunately, it has also been wet. Our karting program on Monday night got rained out. Usually, that seems to have been the case the last couple of months. Every day it has rained up here, but yeah, we have we had a SK 5K, one of the biggest events of the year for the SK Modified / Friday night, won by Todd Owen. This coming week, another race program on Friday. We're also involved in an event at the New London Waterford Speed Bowl with the Monaco Modified Tri-Track Series on Saturday. So things are very busy, all of which can be seen on Flow Racing throughout the next couple of days and into the weekend. So been busy, but it's been a good busy.
Yeah, and it's been busy all over the racing community, obviously with short track racing, of course. As we record this show, the Battle at Berlin going on up at Jeff Striegel's track. So, of course, we'll stay tuned to what's going on there. That race live on Flow Racing. And, of course, in NASCAR in general, we're going to Indianapolis, my hometown. I'll be out at IRP along with our producer, Pat Jaggers, for the trucks and ARCA race. We'll dive into some of that a little bit later in the show. And speaking of trucks, one of our NASCAR Roots racers that has moved his way up to the Truck Series, and actually the defending National Weekly Champion, Layne Riggs, will be on the show. So we've got a lot to talk about with Layne coming up here on Coast to Coast. Now, Kyle, as we do with every show, let's start with the week that was, or the weekend that was, and some big races going on, including the Ground Pounders were back in action, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour at Lancaster, making the return up that way for the New Way Auto Parts 150. Heck of a battle. We talked about when Austin Beers captured that first win and the emotions behind that. Boy, he looked just as happy for win number 2 there this weekend.
Yeah, and that's because he held off a couple of challenges by Matt Hirschman, who I think a lot of people thought was going to get out front and walk away with the event, and that was far from the case. And it was a race that went long green. I think there were just 2 yellows over the course of the 150-lap event, one for an incident late that set up quite the shootout. Fun to watch Austin hold off Matt over the closing laps. But yeah, second win of the year for the second-generation driver, Austin Beers, after picking up that win at the Richmond Raceway earlier in the spring. So up to third in the championship standings, I believe, but it'll be hard for him to contend for this year's title. Still quite a gap back from the lead, too, with I guess there's still quite a few races left as they head to Thompson this coming Wednesday night. So he has a shot, but he's going to need some help here over the next couple of months.
Yeah, midweek race coming up just about 10 minutes up the road from you at Thompson, so I'm sure you're going to probably head up that direction Wednesday night. But what did you think, though? Like you mentioned, just maybe 1 or 2 cautions in that race. I feel like we've kind of had this trend now. We go to these short tracks, and you're just ready for the carnage, and it never comes. But it speaks to the level of the talent there in the tour this season.
Yeah, and I think the size of the field has helped that. I mean, there was an era where 30, 32, 36 modifieds would start some of these races, and you would get, 12, 13 cautions over the course of 150 or 200 laps at some of these short tracks. In the last couple of years, the field size has, shrunk just a bit, 20, 21, 22 cars taking the green flag, and that has helped with room on the racetrack. We had a caution-free race a couple of years ago at the Monadnock Speedway. I never thought we'd see that, but 200 laps there, and I think it was like 32 minutes or 37 minutes. It was quick. So yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think these teams know that there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of races coming up. They're in their busiest stretch, and they can't afford to tear stuff up. And that's, I think, what contributed to a fairly quick race at Lancaster last weekend.
Congratulations again to Austin Beers. Moving on to another national series, the ARCA Menard Series. Speaking of grueling stretches, they've had 3 in a row. They're going to have 3 in a row here this weekend, and then they get 1 week off before they go 6 straight. So the last weekend, it was at Michigan, and it was Jesse Love again. But boy, I don't envy what he had to battle in the race car. As a not race car driver now in my career, I maybe be outside mowing the lawn here in the heat of Charlotte in the dead of summer. Get some of that heat exhaustion. I get to go inside, cool off a little bit, have a glass of water or whatever you have. But he had to battle heat exhaustion after the cool suit went out, the helmet fan went out, the foot dryer or foot fan went out, and had to run a blazing heat in the blazing heat at Michigan. Picked up the win, though, holding off in an incredible race. I mean, the mental strength, Kyle, that it takes for a race car driver to do that's pretty incredible. At such a young age, too, for Jesse.
And arguably one of the hottest or maybe most humid times of the day, with that race starting, after what, 6 o'clock, not quite before sunset, but pretty darn close. And the race went up to about sunset, but he was able to persevere through it, had a great race car. What is that, 6 of 11 now on the ARCA Menard Series season? Got quite the point lead, 82 back to Frankie Muniz, who had a nice top 5 run on Friday evening to finish in the 5th spot. Still 82 points back, though. So Jesse's got it going on right now, and 9 races to go. It's looking pretty good for Jesse Love and picking up that championship.
Yeah, nothing's slowing Jesse Love down. And of course, that Venturini Motorsports team, who we talk about each and every year, is the perennial force. And if you're going to win a championship, you got to go through them if you don't join them, like Jesse Love did. So congratulations to Jesse. Again, rip-roaring through the ARCA Menard season. Again, they're back in action. We'll talk about it coming up in segment number 3 at IRP. So we go back to the short track and a place that I love, and it's near and dear to my heart. So excited for that one. Let's go north of the border, Kyle. Three Rivers, the iconic venue for the NASCAR Pinty Series. Of course, their schedule continues just to fly on by in 2023, and it was Marc-Antoine Camirand finally getting that elusive crown jewel victory over the weekend. He's tried, he's had poles, he's had 3 or 4 top 5s, finally got it done there on Saturday.
He did, and he had to, survive a couple of big incidents over the course of the event. Thankfully, behind him, I'm not sure if you saw the lap 1 crash with Kevin Lacroix going over the top of Andrew Ranger going into, I think, turn 3 of the very first lap. A wild incident, 2 of the biggest names and 2 of the favorites in that race that have done well there in the past, out before they even got to turn 4. So great race, 30-car field, took the green flag, and it was Marc-Antoine Camirand holding off LP Dumoulin at the finish. Great season rolling on here for the NASCAR Pinty Series. Just 5 races to go, and that includes a doubleheader this upcoming week on Monday and Tuesday night at Osh weekend. So their season is winding down here pretty quick, as it usually does north of the border.
Yeah, it certainly does. But, the points battle is starting to shape up just a little bit. We talked about Trayton Lapsevich. He continues to hold on to the lead, 31 points, despite tying his worst finish of 6th over the weekend. So you scratch and claw, Kyle, and sometimes you still come out, on the upside of things. I'm sure Trayton was a little bit worried about where he'd be in the point situation, but 31 points is still pretty good here with a few races left.
He started out the season so strong, and I feel like over the last 2 to 3 races, we haven't really seen much of Trayton as far as leading laps on the podium, especially winning races, but maintaining that gap, maintaining that point lead now at 31, like you mentioned a moment ago, over Camirand, and then it's a larger gap back to Alex Tagliani in 3rd, 52 points back. So if he can hang on to those 5th and 6th place finishes over the next couple of weeks, he should be in good shape to pick up that championship.
Before we get to our guest of the week here on Coast to Coast, let's talk about Langley Speedway, Connor Hall, Kyle. I mean, just give him the trophy and the check for the championship now. I mean, sweeps the double sprint race up there at Langley over the weekend. Of course, that was after the 11 race in a row win streak for him was ended by Brendan Butterbean Queen at the Hampton Heat, but just picks up where you left off, and that's win number 13, 12 and 13 over the weekend at Langley. The track championship, all but his at this point, even though they still have several weekends left in the 2023 season. I'd like to see, where he would stack up, maybe venturing off a little bit from Langley, but definitely has that track wrapped around his finger, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he's no doubt in his comfort zone. It's a good field of race cars there at the Langley Speedway as well. We talked about all the big names that competed in the Hampton Heat. A lot of those drivers run there on a weekly basis. And yeah, Connor's got to figure it out. And you'll have that every once in a while where you get a driver that finds his comfortability, has the confidence, and is able just to rattle off about every, race of the season. He is all of one here in 2024 or 2023 with just a couple of races remaining. And you're right, I think he probably has the track championship all but locked up.
I do want to give a shout out too. I think we failed to mention it. I'm kicking myself for this. Last week, Kate Ray won at Oxford, second woman ever to do it in a late model there at Oxford. We had her on the show last year, an incredible young lady that's really making waves in the sport and is doing a heck of a job at it. So I wanted to give her a shout out. Congratulations. Of course, that race is rapidly approaching to the Oxford Plains 250. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. All right. We talked about Indianapolis. It's a big weekend for NASCAR. It's a big weekend for the ARCA Menard Series. Well, the driver that has graduated up from the late models and, of course, winning the national championship last year over Peyton Sellers, Layne Riggs, made his debut in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series last year with a top 10 finish. He's back for more. We've got him on the flip side of the break. That's coming up next on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Again, on the phone via Zoom, it is Layne Riggs, who's making his return to IRP for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, this time for Spire Motorsports. Layne, again, appreciate you being on the show with us. I know it's been a work in the making here to get to this point. What are the excitement level getting back to IRP, a place that you just told me you loved, but obviously had a good run there last year with Hallmark Friesen, now running the Spire Motorsports truck. Where's the excitement level as we get going this weekend?
About as high as it can get. I think this is my best opportunity so far going in. Great track for me. I mean, I'm first ever time in a truck, first ever time in IRP. We went out and finished 7th after, bad luck during the race even. Now I'm going to be with Spire Motorsports, same exact truck that Larson won with at Wilkesboro. And I think that that's probably the most similar track in the truck series to each other. Setup wise, I got Bono Mannion on the top of the box. I mean, he's a smart cookie. Everything pointing in the right direction to have a really strong run and possibly even a win. I was thinking about that last night. I was like, what if I won that race? That'd be insane. But the goal's there. That's the goal. I want to go win. So I think I got a great opportunity. I'm super thankful to Infinity Communications and Jeff Coffey. He's the one that gave me this opportunity to be able to live out my dreams. He's a huge supporter of me and Layne Riggs brand and getting me these opportunities to try to help me move up. He keeps talking about, I want to see you in Cup one day. I want to see you in Cup one day. And it's all pushing the right direction. So just super thankful to the people around me, super thankful for the opportunity. And it's all about the timing of it all coming together. And I'm glad this one did.
It's a great opportunity, no doubt, this week at IRP. What's the preparation like, though, leading into this weekend with a team that you don't run with weekly and a series that you obviously don't run with weekly? What's the prep like to prepare for what's ahead on Friday night?
Well, it's more of just watching video, and that's been for most people because this is like one of the only tracks on the circuit that there isn't good sim programs for. So, most of the tracks we go to is cup tracks or, big tracks, say Iowa or places like that, they used to go to. But IRP isn't a laser scan track. So there's really not an accurate sim program for any manufacturer out there, I've learned. So everybody's kind of going in blind. And I feel like, if anything, that's giving me the upper hand, being a short track racer, having experience at IRP last year and things of that nature. So it's kind of been really low key. I mean, I played a little bit of iRacing last night, got on there and roughed up some people in C Fixed, and that's about all that I could do is just try to get there and watch video and just try to relive any memories that I had last year. But IRP it's a pretty easy track to get a hold of. You just deep it off in the corner, let it slide up the bank until it turns. Once you get it rotated, you get back on the gas off the corner and have some nice, easy throttle control. And I think that's something that I was strong with last year. A lot of these guys used to the 1.5 miles, you're in the gas more than you're not. And, they just couldn't quite lay the throttle down right. They'd either not do it enough or they'd spin the tires. So I think that's something that's going to be my strong point. And a track like that you have to have a lot of patience and a lot of patience with your right foot is somewhere that I'm going to be strong.
I was going to say, what's the biggest takeaway from your experience there last year? Because I know down on pit road, it was interesting to see how quickly the lines changed and guys running up against the wall and trying to get the truck pointed off the front straightaway. Where do you feel like you learned the most that will help you this second time around?
I think it's just mainly learning the radial tires. I've run bias plies, short track tires my whole life. And the first time there at IRP last year, I had to learn a radial in 20 minutes. I had the sim. We had the sim at Toyota last year that it was okay. They tried to guess on IRP, but in truly, it wasn't accurate. So I mean, and also you're in a simulator, you can't feel it with your two rear cheeks. So I had to go out there and truly learn a radial in 20 minutes and in qualifying and in the race. And I think it's just learning that edge is so much finer. A bias ply, you can lean on it, you can slide them a little bit, you can still make speed. But the radial, it's like you're good. Then all of a sudden you slip and it's a big slip. You're going for a ride. So it's just learning to be on that 99% edge without hitting 100% grip. Is the hardest thing. And like I said, these guys, I think even the veterans struggled with it. I remember last year, we qualified pretty far back in the pack, and I was working my way to the front, and I was like, man, there's all these guys I watch on TV every weekend. Like, here's Sauter right next to me and Crafton. I'm like, I need to watch them. They know their stuff. And I look and they're spinning off the corners. I'm like, oh gosh, I thought that they'd have a little
Maybe
bit better
not. Maybe
throttle
not.
control. So yeah, and I ended up passing both of them and finishing both in front of both of them. So that was a really cool experience. And but either way, I'm just glad to be back in the truck series. I'm glad to be back on national television again. I hope I get talked about and in the front enough where they can talk about a battle for the lead or battle for top 5 spot. So it's really just getting out here and not letting anybody forget my name.
And we thought we would see more of you last year after that great top 10 run. Certainly, Layne will get more opportunity, maybe a full-time ride this year. Were there any opportunities that came from that? Did the phone ring at all? And maybe they just weren't the right opportunity in the right moment leading into this season?
Well, not initially. It wasn't like the Monday after the race getting
Right.
phone calls. But I think in the long term, yes. Like example, I don't think I would have gotten this ride this weekend if we didn't do what we did last year. So I think it's more of just the long term goals and long term, stats that we put down that's what's making the bigger deal. So yes, every good run we had helped, but not on the short term.
I was gonna say, as somebody who's now making this transition, we talk about the sport and kind of where it's at in terms of drivers getting opportunities, and of course, it all starts with the pocketbook, right? How hard is it now to get sponsorship? I mean, I know I read a story too about how I guess Hallmark Freezing, there was maybe an opportunity, but you had to find funding, and just things didn't work out, and unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. So, just how hard as a driver is it now, and where the current state of the sport is, just to get that funding to secure those opportunities for you?
It's harder than ever. The economy and the way that money flows nowadays, it's really, really tough. You have to know somebody, you have to have a connection, you have to work all the time to try to find it, make phone calls. It's a very tough game that I've been trying to play for 4 or 5 years now. And so far I've only gotten, 4 or 5 rides from it, but it's so hard to justify, running late models and paying X amount every race to do it yourself or, do it for another team. And then just to move up, in my opinion, one level. I think late model and then truck should be right after. It's 10 to 15 times more for a singular race. And the late model thing, you can go build your own cars, set them up, go race. You can't do that with a truck. I mean, you're going to finish maybe third from last at best. It's just the competition level and the resources and the professionalism of the stuff they bring to the racetrack is so much higher. So you have to go with another team. You have to find sponsorship to bring to another team. And that's so backwards from what it used to be back in the day. Dad talked about, he said he was one of the last ones to get his opportunity the natural way. I went out there and won races, and they called me the sponsors called me and the teams called me. I wish that's what it could get back to. I wish that the teams were the ones that were holding the sponsors and they went and recruited the best drivers. Now the teams are sitting there arms wide open, waiting for the driver to come in with the best sponsor. So it's tough, but you got to play the game if you want to make it big time. So it's, but back to what I said, it's all about Infinity Communications and Jeff Coffey. He's the one that truly loves racing. He loves me and seeing me succeed. And it takes people like that in the sport to keep it running.
You mentioned the late model and the late model program. How much short tracking have you been doing this summer? Saw you were at the throwback race a week or so ago at the Hickory Motor Speedway. How much have you done, and will you continue to do once IRP gets in the rearview mirror here this weekend?
Well, we ran my car some at the beginning of the year, and obviously I got the opportunity to run for KHI at Caraway, and
Yep.
that went really well until it didn't. And we, got another shot to go to Hickory and kind of stumped our toe. But right now it's looking like I'm going to run a couple more Cars Tour races for the KHI camp in the 62 car, and talks with Kevin and the team about possibly doing some next year too, or even full time. Nothing's in paper and pen yet, but I'm excited to do that. It's been nice to race for a different teams. Forever it's been me and Dad and all our volunteer guys, but it's nice to go in with a team that's professional as a Truck Xfinity Cup team and show up to a late model race. It's so much more easy as a driver just to sit back and be a driver instead of having to be driver, mechanic, crew chief, all the above. And it's a really good opportunity with them. And I'm super thankful to Kevin, Layne, and all them give me that opportunity. And they're trying to build KHI back and be what it used to be at one point, but instead of being in the truck series, being in late model stock racing. So if I can try to help build their program up and build it to a top tier championship team, I hope that I'm the number one driver to do that.
Yeah, and that'd be a huge opportunity, obviously, not only just with Kevin, but to work with Rodney Childers. I know that was a really cool experience for you. And unfortunately, the whole DQ thing just overshadows how special that night was. And I have to ask, because Kyle and I have talked about this on the show, I noticed lately a lot of races are now won and lost in the tech shed. And it seems like the rules between different tracks and different series, whether it's the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series or Cars Tour when it comes to like late model stocks and stuff like that, do you feel like the rules kind of need to be a little bit more forgiving or more in line with each other? Because it seems like you can run the same car at two different places, but way two different rules packages, and it gets all sorts of confusing, especially for us race fans.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the Cars Tour rule book is a whole lot shorter. There's very bare minimum rules, which I like. I think that's fun. You can add creativity to the car. You can do things that you can't in the NASCAR rulebook. The NASCAR rulebook's 100 pages long for the late model stock section. So, I mean, to truly optimize yourself when you go to both of those races, you need to have a Cars Tour car and you need to have a NASCAR car. And I think that's more different now than it ever has been. I think just, most of the time people just had the NASCAR car that went by every single little rule and they just took it to the Cars Tour races. And that's what everybody had. But now everybody's optimizing the Cars Tour rule book. When you do that, you can't take it back to the NASCAR tracks to a certain extent. So I think that's the tough part. I've Kevin's pretty big in the Cars Tour series now, and he's talked to me about having talks with the people at the NASCAR Weekly Series, and they're wanting to try to align themselves and move forward to hopefully have locals show up to the Cars Tour races now. It's hard for those local guys that have to run by that long rule book every week to come running against the guys that had the shorter rule book. I do think there needs to be change, though. It's tough for everybody, but that's just part of it when you have more than one series.
You mentioned Kevin Harvick. How did that relationship come to be with you and Kevin, who is now one of the owners of the Cars Tour?
Well, there was a lot of different factors together. It was almost more of a connection between Layne and Rodney. So Layne's dad, John Paul Linville, gave my dad one of his first opportunities racing in the Pro Cup series back in the day in the mid to late 90s in the number 62 car. And they went and won a bunch of races together. And, that was before Layne even knew Kevin. And so went down the road. Dad made it to Cup, and Rodney was his crew chief. So he knew Rodney very well, still talks to him, even up till last year all the time. So then, they built the late model for Kevin. They went to Wilkesboro. Granted, they parked next to us in the pits. Everything just aligned right. We talked a lot and had a strong run that night. And, the Monday morning, Kevin called me and said, "Hey, I want you to go run Caraway for us. I can't really do this. I'm racing Cup full time, but I still want to build this late model program. I can't do it by myself. I need an experienced late model driver to come in and help build it." And I guess I was the right guy for it. And I couldn't be more thankful for that timing and the way everything worked out. But, again, everything happens for a reason. So I'm glad that I was sitting in the right shoes that day.
Before we let you go, just overall, what's life been like since you're national champion? I mean, I guess we're in August now, so it's been almost a full, racing season since you took home the national championship last year. But how's your life changed? I mean, obviously we know still fighting to get in the Truck Series. You've had those couple opportunities this year, and then now coming to IRP. But have you felt different? Have things been a little bit different since then? And what do you see the future holds for you?
It's been more of a relief. Last year was just I was a ball of stress the whole time, just tense, racing 2-3 times a weekend. It was grueling. So this year, it's been a whole lot slower and enjoyable because we race once every 2 to 3 weeks, and we really get to prepare and focus and enjoy every single weekend. Last year we had to force ourselves to go to the racetrack. We had beaten, battered cars. We work all night and sleep none to get to the racetrack the next day. And, that really did suck the fun out of it. But in the end, it paid off. Say we didn't win, it would have been total waste of time. So I'm just so thankful that we were able to pull everything together and make it happen and win it. But, the opportunity wise, I don't think I would have been in the 62 car without that. It goes back to the long-term opportunity deal. It wasn't the day after we won it, got a phone call, we want you to come run my late model. But all the stats that keep building up and adding up and, put on my resume is nothing but helping me get the job in the end. So it's been easier and more fun and relieving to be able to walk in my room and look at the trophy every day. It's an enjoyable thing I'll never forget for the rest of my life.
Final question for you. You mentioned your dad several times now. Tell us about that paint scheme. A week and a half ago, your throwback scheme at Hickory in honor of your dad.
Yeah, well, we ran the 62, same font, same scheme as John Paul. We ran that actually at Caraway, and we just ran it again at Hickory. we ran it at Caraway, and I asked Kevin. I said, "What's going to be our throwback scheme?" He said, "We're going to throw it back to Caraway last weekend." So,
I like it.
I was like, "Well, it's already a throwback scheme, so that's perfect." I think that's the same number font we're going to run all the time. We're going to kind of be the throwback car 24/7. So it's a pretty cool deal to put together. I know it's really special for Layne and Kevin and everybody that knew John Paul. I didn't know him personally, but from all the stories I've heard and stuff they've told me, I know he's smiling down looking at the 62 run good, and he's really excited about that.
Well, Layne, congratulations, man, on all the success, and best of luck this weekend. I hope to catch up with you down on pit road before the start of the Truck Series race. Go give him a good one, all right? You're in a good equipment. You've got a great crew chief on the box. Time to get the job done, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you in victory lane.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys. Looking forward to it.
That's Layne Riggs getting ready to tackle IRP for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series with Spire Motorsports. Coming up next, some news and notes and a look at the calendar on NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back into NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Whelen Engineering. Kyle, great conversation with Layne Riggs. I'm hoping he gets more opportunities. Of course, we'll wait to be seen, but obviously the rides he's been in, whether it was Hallmar Friesen, running the Tricon Garage Toyota earlier this year, and of course now for Spire Motorsports, I mean, all really good opportunities. So hopefully he could flex his muscle again at IRP and ink some more rides coming up here in the near future.
And he's made the best of all of those opportunities. And we thought after last year's really solid run at IRP that we would see more of him, especially at, say, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series level. But that just has not been the case for, a number of reasons. But hopefully, he's back in the spotlight this weekend at IRP and can show the NASCAR world at the national level that, that's where he belongs.
Speaking of IRPs, we get to some news and notes. The ASA and CRA Super Series that was slated to run Saturday after the NASCAR and ARCA weekend at IRP Friday already canceled. And Kyle, this makes me nervous because they're already forecasting inclement weather, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. So I've got fingers, I've got toes crossed. And I think what they did as far as the ASA and CRA schedule was to say, well, we want to give the ARCA and truck guys a rain date just in case Friday night doesn't get either fully in or maybe we don't get to halfway, whether it may be they want to leave Saturday open. So unfortunately, if you're looking for some super late model action, not going to happen Saturday at IRP. I think they also had some midgets as well. which are super cool. If you ever get to watch open wheel midgets at IRP screaming at 130 down into turn one, it's a sight to see. So you're gonna have to wait for that. So unfortunately, that postponed or canceled. I'm not sure of a makeup date just yet. Battle of Berlin, we talked about it, Kyle, at the top of the show, going on right now as we record this. Obviously,
Yep.
for those of you tuning in here on Thursday when this show is posted, you'll know who won. We don't, so don't spoil it. But congratulations, though, early congratulations to Jeff Striegel. That was a monstrous effort between SRX getting it turned around for Battle at Berlin. Of course, the names, Kyle, that are in the field: Chase Elliott, William Byron, Eric Jones, Carson Hocevar. I talked to Ty Majeski, shocked he wasn't on the entry list. He said, yeah, not going to make it this year. Of course, he's been up there several times in his career. Evan Shotko, the defending winner, kind of the local hero up there as well. Bubba Pollard, you name it, they've been up there. So tip of the cap, Jeff Striegel, our colleague at Motor Racing Network, for a job well done. Can't wait to get the recap of all that stuff. Kyle, let's talk about this weekend. Let's go back to IRP for the ARCA Menard Series, the Reese's 200 at the short track. And again, last year it was all Chandler Smith. He's not in the field. Sammy Smith, he's not in the field. So we're going to have a new winner this year. What do you like? Well, who do you like? I guess I would assume Jesse Love. Is there anybody else on your short list as somebody that could take home the checkered there at IRP?
Yeah, you have a couple of other potential winners in the field, I think, other than Jesse Love. And if anybody can do it, you have Sean Hingarani, who's doing so well in the ARCA Menards West campaign. You have Luke Fenhouse, who is always running well in the Midwest and knows that track well. So those are two right now on my short list. If anybody can stay with Jesse Love, I believe those two will be in contention on Friday night.
Again, it is a combo weekend, so it is also race number 6 for the ARCA East program. They only have 2 races left, and Kyle, you mentioned Luke Fenhouse. He's just 11 points behind William Sawalich, both those drivers in the field. William running one of the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas that we've typically seen him as. So you get a short track, you get a tight points battle. Oh, but then you add the ARCA Menard Series drivers into it, like Jesse Love. I feel like you're going to have to win this race. You're going to have to, one, go through Jesse, but probably go through William too. And we've seen both of those scrap at the short tracks here lately this season.
And Shane Van Gisbergen in the race as well. Who would have thought we'd see him after running so well at the Chicago Street Race, making his oval debut here in the States. So that'll be fun as well. But you're right, a lot of great short trackers, a lot of races within a race with the East Series running their penultimate race for the season, the ARCA National Series in the middle of a fairly long stretch for them. So a lot happening right now. And, it's going to be a great race, great field of cars on Friday night.
And they will have a week off, the ARCA Menard Series, before that 6-race stretch. So they're on the heels of a 3 or 4 race grind. So I was curious to see, well, maybe will they play a little nice, save their stuff? They got a week to fix their race cars, so maybe they'll take the gloves off a little bit at IRP. We'll find out. Again, that race, 6 p.m. Friday night. You can hear that race, yours truly, along with the rest of the MRN crew, 6 p.m. on the Motor Racing Network as well. All right, Kyle, some other big races coming up on the docket this weekend. The Cars Tour out at Ace Speedway. Super Modifieds at Meridian. And how about your weekly show at Stafford Friday night? You guys will be busy once again.
Yeah, regular race program, our first regular race program of the year where there's nothing extra on the card. Mother Nature right now, fingers crossed. Looks like it's going to be a good night for the SK Modifieds, the late models, the SK Lights, the street stocks, the limited late models. So should be a great show live on Flow. Want to give a quick shout out to Danny Bone winning the modified race at Bowman Gray Stadium last week. Did you see the Burt Myers incident on the backstretch though?
I
during
did. The little kitty litter toss there on the ride. And that was a first for me. Also, it looked a lot darker than I thought Speedy Dry looked like. But hey, nonetheless, valiant effort, good toss.
It was a whole bucket from Burt Myers to Chris Fleming on the back straightaway. I had never seen that before. I thought he was going to pick up maybe a handful. Sure. I didn't expect most of the bucket sitting on the back stretch to end up in Chris Fleming's car, but I think he got his point across.
Yeah, and again, that's the magic of Bowman Gray. You never know what you're going to
see.
It's an entertainment spectacle. You haven't been there, get there. Monaco Tri-Track Series at New London Waterford Speed Bowl. Kyle, I know you're going to be there. You guys have added some of that to your plate as well as far as the Stafford crew. So what can we expect of that series? It's a cool little series up there as well for those that love modified racing.
Yeah, 6 races, big money on the line. Right now we have 34 entries for, I believe, 30 starting spots. So going to be a great night. Matt Hirschman being one of those races. Dana DiMatteo, the kind of the local champion at Waterford, has won championships and legend cars and such. He won the race a year ago. He'll be in the field. A lot of the familiar faces from the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour will be campaigning as well. So going to be a great event. They'll race at Waterford, Stafford, and then wrap up at Waterford in October. They have already run events at places like Thunder Road in Vermont, the Seekonk Speedway in Massachusetts, and the Star Speedway in New Hampshire. So kind of a New England-based series, 6 times throughout the summer. Fun, and we'll be on Flow for the first time this weekend.
That's right. It'll be on Saturday. And speaking of Saturday, plenty of racing as well. Some wing super modifieds at Oswego, wing sprints at Berlin. So Jeff Striegel's not done yet with his racing calendar. And plenty of weekly racing, whether you like Thunder Road, Hickory, Langley, much, much more, all on the Flow Racing dial coming up on Saturday. And of course, plenty of big races still to come. I know Oxford 250, things like that, kind of looking down the horizon. So not quite done yet, especially including the All-American 400 as well. So Kyle, enjoy the weekend. I know you've got Stafford and you'll be headed up to New London Waterford Speed Bowl. What do you think also? And you mentioned before we let you go too, Shane Van Gisbergen being in the field for the truck series. Do we like him on an oval? What do you think? I feel like the guy can do anything at this point.
Yeah, I love him on an oval. I think all that supercar experience. We saw what guys like Marcus Ambrose was able to do. Now more than a decade ago. I think he'll be strong. It's going to take him a little while to adapt. I think to turning left. It won't take him long though. I think a practice session and a couple of qualifying laps and he'll be good to go by race time on Friday night. So it'll be fun to watch him. And then we get to see him at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course over the weekend as well. So going to be a very interesting weekend in Indianapolis. So many stories at both racetracks.
Yeah, and at IMS too, you had him, you had Gostecki, another Australian V8 supercar legend, Kamui Kobayashi, who is a sports car ace, who, I mean, one of the fastest guys I've ever seen in a sports car. So you add those 3 into the Cup Series mix. Oh boy, get your televisions and your radios tuned in to this weekend because it is going to be exciting. Now, Kyle mentioned IRP for the trucks. That is a doubleheader again on the Motor Racing Network. That is our schedule this weekend. 6 p.m. Friday is airtime for the Reese's 200, the ARCA Menard Series and ARCA E Series. And then, of course, immediately following at 8:30 scheduled airtime for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series T-Sport 200, the playoff opener for the round of 10 in 2023. Well, thank you so much to Layne Riggs for joining us here on the show. Best of luck to him out at IRP. Hope to catch up with him this weekend. And for all of you tuned in here to NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Whelen Engineering, on the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, and trusted to perform. For Kyle Rickey and our producer, Pat Jaggers, I'm Chris Wilner. See you next time on Coast to Coast.